Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gio, and today we are going to be restoring leather seats so that the end result looks like this. Now, I've already gone through the whole process and I found out which methods worked for me, and we're going to go ahead and apply it to this seat. Now, you already see that we have some leather crack filler applied. I did record some footage of that, so stay tuned. We will be going over that. But also, I rebuilt this bolster. So this is the driver's seat out of the S2000, and the bolster was just completely blown out. So we took apart the entire seat, got the foam out, rebuilt it with foam, adhesive spray, and some foam-backed Skrim, and used a hog ring tool to put it all back together. And we went over a few other things that really helped make this seat better in the end result, which I'll also go over. But basically, we put it back together, and this is the end result after quite a few coats of dye and top coat. So a lot of people and a lot of videos I watch don't really go over the top coat, which I will be going over in this video, because what it does is it puts a nice even sheen on the whole seat so it matches, and it also locks in that color so you don't get any color transfer from the seat onto your clothing. One last thing to note is you will want to keep some toothpicks on hand. That way you can poke any material that has clogged up the perforations. You really need it a lot when you're doing this type of repair. So I had the spatula scraped in the leather crack filler and it basically clogged all these. So I went with a toothpick and then I just dabbed my finger so I wouldn't leave any raised portions. And I also noticed that when you're putting the dye and the top coat, they do get clogged again. So if you stay on it while you're doing the process, it really makes the end way easier versus having some very clogged perforations at the very end that you need to try to clear out. Now that we got all that covered, let's go ahead and get this seat finished up so that it looks like this. Wow guys, check out this bolster. Just like we thought, it is completely toast. And we caught it right in time because the wear was starting to go through the backing on the leather and was going to protrude through the leather itself. So we're saving ourselves a bunch of work from having to deal with a physical tear on the seat cover. Now when it comes to seat bolster repair, I am no expert. This is actually the first one I will ever do, but I did some research and this is what I come up with. We have hog ring pliers. I use this on the FJ40 if you saw me do that on the headliner. And I know this will work in this project because I sprayed it on some material like this. And basically we're going to use the foam to repair the bolster itself. Then when that is all glued in, we're going to use this foam backing with Skrim to put over the top of the repair. The foam backing will absorb the inconsistencies and the Skrim will make it feel nice and smooth. Then we can put on the leather seat bottom with the hog ring pliers, and once the seat is fully back together, we can get onto the leather repair and re-dyeing of the leather itself. Not too bad for my first time around. I rebuilt the bolster. I took some measurements of how high I wanted it, how thick I wanted it to be, and taper it right into the seat with the same curvature. So now that we've got some weird little gaps and offsets here and just a couple of patches in here, we're going to go ahead and put the Skrim foam on there and get this looking nice and tidy. And here is the final product of my first seat bolster repair ever. I think it looks pretty darn good. We've got new foam. We've got Skrim backed foam to cover up the imperfections. Now all we need to do is get the leather seat cover back on and get the seat put back together. And this is the next task. We need to get these rods, see right here, this rod right here, these are actually to be hog ringed into place. So somehow we've got to stick in the hog ring pliers and get it all clamped down. Perfect. All right, check it out. We have the first one hog ringed in. I went through the original hole. Luckily got it around both sticks here and double check, make sure we didn't puncture anything out here. So we are good to go. Let's get this next one done and tackle the rest. Wow, that was quite the battle. Again, this is my first time ever doing this, so I'm still learning. But we did get a hog ring on the 2 center ribs, so 2 hog rings here, 2 hog rings here, and then 3 on the side. There's gonna be 1, 2, 3. I wanted to get these coated with Rust-Oleum Rust Reformer before putting everything together. So these things are shipped bare metal, and you can see a few rust spots in previous footage of when we were taking it all apart. And so while it was apart and readily accessible to paint, I figured it was a good time to just get it coated so we don't have to worry about anything else in the future. Obviously, water is not a huge issue in an interior, so Honda just shipped it out bare metal. And you'll find that sometimes on dashboard mounting components as well. But for now, we're going to go ahead and get this stuff all set up so we can get the seat base put back together. Untreated, this thing makes a weird noise when you kind of rub against it without this felt, and even the paint did help a bit. And once you hear that noise, you can't unhear it. So I wanted to do this before we put the foam back on. This step is the easiest step. You just need to rewrap the material around the foam and get it ready for the seat base. the bolster is already looking much better, and we haven't even hog ringed the side yet. Once we get these guys pulled down more, we should get some of these wrinkles out. And keep in mind, Honda only uses leather on the forward facing parts, so this right here is actually vinyl, and that's going to go for the same on the seat as well. And you could kind of see a color change. You can see how this is darker and this is lighter. So only forward facing is going to be leather and the rest will be vinyl. If I do steam clean this, steam it to get some wrinkles out, we have to be very, very careful while doing so. So this next step was nice and easy. It's just a matter of getting the hog rings around the tabs on the seat frame. And then I followed up with the pliers just to make sure all of the rings were nice and tight. Alright guys, well, it's all hog ringed up. If you saw me come after and do a second pass with the pliers, I was just pinching it a little bit more to get everything tighter. Those are kind of like universal hog ring pliers. They're not upholstery specific, but it got the job done plenty. And I love that it's reloadable, so you're ready to go on another one in case you do mess up. Not a big deal. Let's get this flipped over and see what it looks like. Man, this thing is looking so good. I am really happy with the way it's looking right now. It's going to get even better with the more work we put into it. Now with all of that out of the way, it's time to clean this. We will be using Lexol. This is the best stuff you can get for cleaning and conditioning. However, we're only doing the conditioning at the end of this seat project. Be sure to clean the seat top to bottom, front to back with the leather cleaner. It is crucial for the leather crack filler to adhere properly and also for the dye to apply properly. You want a nice clean finish when you're done with all this hard work. Once that's done, it's time to get the seat put back together, which is very simple. It's simply putting the rails back on the base, flipping the base over, getting the seat back bolted into position, and now we are ready for the next step, which is the leather crack filler and dye application. My main goal here is just to fix these cracks, little imperfections that we find here and there, and I really want to take some of this texture down on the bolster because it's very extreme and very, very rough feeling. I'm going to start with this side right here and just use the 600 grit to knock it down a bit and see what we need to fill. And I'm not putting a ton of pressure. This is light pressure, just taking down some of the high spots. We'll come closer here and just look at this side bolster right here. Before I hit this with 600 grit, it was so rough. Right now, it's really smooth. I would say probably 60 to 70% better than it was. You can still feel some coarseness, but we don't want to cut anymore because as you see here, in some of the really high spots, it's a little wider. That means you're cutting deep into the leather past the dye, the original dye, and there's really no need to do that. We're not looking for perfection. We don't want silky smooth seats. We want some texture, some grain to look as natural as possible. This is going to get a very skim coat of filler just to try to get rid of some of these deeper wrinkles. I don't know why that one aged so bad, but that is the outer passenger bolster. The inner obviously doesn't get so much wear and tear because no one's getting in and out on that side. From there, once I feel comfortable with that bolster, we'll move around and just do one section at a time. If you're not planning on using any leather crack filler, you don't need to sand with 600 grit. However, I planned on using crack filler on any panel that needed it, so I opted to do this extra step. Really quick, we're going to use some 99% isopropyl alcohol on a microfiber and just clean up the seat, get some more of that material, that sanded material out of the seat itself so that the crack filler and the dye can adhere better. You can see all that I just filled in right there. It's Definitely something that you see in person more so than on the camera until you put in the crack filler and you can see just how much it fills in. For example, right here, that is a pretty low spot that probably doesn't show on the camera until got some filler in it. You could definitely use the spatula to feel the levelness and just kind of scrape it across. I would say to definitely skim it, and if you need to, do another coat later after it cures. There's no point in just gooping on a ton of it the first shot. It's definitely one of those things where less is more. I'm feeling much better with the tool. I did notice that it's not as smooth after a while when the material starts drying up, so I sanded it with the sandpaper. Just give it a quick pass so that way it's nice and fresh, and wiped off the old material with some alcohol. But for now, we're going to jump onto this bolster and see where it takes us. I'm giving it a good amount of pressure just to take off a lot of material. Now, one thing you might have noticed right away is how much lighter the restored seat looked to this one. And at first I thought it was too light, but I'm going to show you a few things that I found that make me feel that it was the right color and that the seat doctors have the perfect mix on hand for these type of blue seats. All right, and we're out in the sun so you can see what I'm trying to explain here. So this is forward facing, this is leather. Check out how dark it is. Now this is going to be vinyl, and look at how light it is. When I had originally started dyeing the first seat, I only did this part and it started slowly matching here. So that's what made me feel very confident that the dye was mixed correctly and it wasn't too light. Now there's a couple of other things to factor in as well. So this is also vinyl, but check out how dark it is. So the sun actually darkens up material over time. This is still light because it's been out of the sun, whereas this gets more exposure up top. And we can move on to up here where we've got vinyl on top and on the inside, and you can see it is much lighter than the sun-baked leather. So what's really weird is that these two are vinyl, yet this one darkened and this one didn't. I don't know, I can't explain that, but we move around onto the back right here and you can instantly see the color change where this has been out of the sun for so long it never really got dark. So I got a little curious and wanted to see if this applied to the car as well, and you can see how light that blue is. It's been protected by the seat essentially. this whole time. And we move over here where the sun baked it a little bit more, and you can see where the center console protected the blue and it's lighter, and then it got darker. So I could even give this whole center part a pass with a dye, or maybe two, just to even everything out. And we can also factor that into the door panels, which I haven't yet looked at, but I'm assuming the same principles will apply. And I say we can do that to the center console and the other parts of the seat because this is leather and vinyl dye, so as long as you prep it properly, it won't come off. But anyways, let's get on to actually applying the dye. And what I want to do here is just pour a little bit onto the brush, and it's going to eventually soak in once we start applying more. And just give it a nice brush. Now you're not going to be color changing the seat on one pass, so keep that in mind. We're just trying to apply a bit of a heavier coat onto the areas that have been filled with leather crack filler, just to make it easier for the final rub-on methods to cover. Now, if you leave any streaks with this heavy pass, it will show. So you need to make sure it is blocked out and flat. Don't rush it. Don't try to cover the whole color change in one pass. It's just not going to happen. Now, if you see these bubbles right here, you want to get rid of those because they will show up when it dries. And you can use the pointy tip of this brush to kind of get in between the seam. Alright, so this is how you should expect it to look after the first pass. We're going to have a bunch of blotchiness where the new dye is kind of masking over the original dye, and also we've got the crack filler showing through the translucentness of the dye. So this is how it's going to look. Don't get worried, it's going to get better. I've got this light right here, and I just wanted to show you how much better this bolster matches the side, which I haven't laid any dye on yet. And that color is just spot on to how it should have been. Second coat down with the paint sponge method, and it's looking sharp. We're getting a lot more of an even blue, but we're still seeing a lot of the crack filler come through the color. But don't worry, this will be nice and gone once we do the blue shop towel method, which is next. So that leaves us with two relatively heavy coats of dye. And now we're going to start the blue shop towel method, but right now I want to let this really cure. If you keep putting dye over dye, you're building up the dye. So if you keep going without it being dry all the way down to the base, the next coat will actually pull it off, and you'll see it start coming off when you start swiping it with the blue shop towel. or if you continue with the paint sponge method. But to me, that is no longer needed after 2 coats. Now, I did follow up after every pass with the heat gun, and that's just to make sure that it's nice and flashed, so that way when I get back around to it, it's really dry and I don't have to worry about any ifs, ands, or buts. And this could be substitute with a hair dryer. This Porter cable is turned really low, so it's water based. Again, you can see it dry out while you're using it. And this die calls for 20 minutes flash time in between coatings. So I started in the same spot, and by the time I was done, you can say that that's been 20 minutes. It's been quite a while. And with the heat gun, we know for sure that it was flashed all the way. So that's why I went ahead and did the second coating with the paint sponge method all the way around, and I flashed it again. In theory, we could probably do the blue shop towel method, but I don't want to jinx it. We're going to go ahead and let it sit out for a while. It's over 80 degrees today. I've got a fan over here that I'm just going to point at the seat, and we'll give it about 45 minutes before we continue any further. Okay, it's been 45 minutes. Now it's time for the application by hand with the blue towel. So basically I take one, cut it in half. That way we end up with something like this. And the reason why I do this is because you really don't need that much blue towel, and I'm just saving some. So that's basically what we're going to want here, and we're going to pour the dye on here and just rub it in. Now when you rub it in, you want it to thin out and kind of just get an even buff on it. You don't want to see any lines or streaks, similar to what we're doing with the brush. And we're doing 3 coats here because they're much thinner than the paintbrush method. So this is going to help just give it a fully even blue color all the way around, and then we can start doing the top coat. So I took notes when I did the other seat, and I did 2 coats with the paint sponge method and then 3 coats by hand with the blue shop towel, and then we got onto the top coat, which was 3 coats with just the shop towel only. So let's go ahead and get started on this one. It should be pretty quick and easy, and then we'll let it flash off before putting on the next 2 coats. We're going to show this process in standard speed, just like we did initially with the paint sponge method. That way you can see how it works in real time. It may feel like you're not doing much and you're still seeing the color come through from the seat crack filler, but don't worry, this will go away. By the time you get that 3rd coat on, it's going to be gone for sure. And you don't really have to spend any time kind of dabbing any air bubbles out. That's 1 coat done by hand. I threw that shop towel away. We're going to go ahead and use a new one on every coat. Right now I will hit it with this heat gun, and we'll let it flash another 20 minutes anyways, even though we use the heat gun, and we'll put on another coat right after that. So this is the seat after its third coat. We've got one more coat, but it's not a full hand applied coating to the entire seat. I'm just going to kind of spot touch up the places where I had leather crack filler, because you can still kind of see it peeking through a little bit on the bolsters. And I guess the best place to show it is right here, where we had some leather crack filler but there wasn't any here. So it's just a little bit of a color change, but that last fourth pass will get it looking perfect, and then we can hit it with that top coat and get the blue locked in. We are all done with the dye, and now we're moving on to the final step of applying top coat. This one specially formulated for Honda to emulate the original look as if it were coming off the showroom floor. Right now it doesn't look too bad on camera, but in person you can kind of see some different blotchiness from applying the dye and just it drying in different times. So this helps just give it a nice even sheen and kind of eliminate the blotchiness. And when you start layering it on after we do 3 coats, it really looks like it's brand spanking new. So let's go ahead and get the first coat started. So this is the final product. It is 6:50, almost 7 o'clock, and I started at noon. So that's how long it took to do the dyeing process my way, with the proper flashing time in between every coat. That way we're not smearing product and messing up the whole dyeing process. So from here, all we have to do is just clean and paint that little mesh insert, and then we could snap that gray trim back on, put on the seatbelt holder, the side bolster cover with the lever handle, and we could throw these back into the car. But man, this is looking great. I can't wait to see it next to the other seat and just have them both looking essentially brand new. So here's the product of both seats completed and ready to go into the car. I pulled it out of the garage, dropped the top to give us a little bit more room, and we'll toss the seats in and see how it looks like. We still have a lot of work to do on the interior, but we could at least get the seats out of the house and into the car. Alright guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. It was a long one, but we did a nice thorough process on bringing these seats back to life. So the next one will be getting the rest of this interior put back together. We need to do some sound deadening on the doors, get the door panels put back on. I actually need to do a little bit of repair work on the driver door armrest area where the vinyl split, so we'll actually get some of that on film. Shifter rebuild, a bunch of small little things to get this interior wrapped up, and then we could go on the first drive in a long time.